Travis Wing did so. In Jewish learning, there is a pattern of the patriarchs and heroes of the Bible stories who have two wives. And as Deuteronomy chapter 18 verses, somebody's sleeping, 18:15 through 18, you have the prophecy of the latter-day Christ for the Jews. He's not Jesus. It is anti-Semitic to claim that the Jewish scriptures are referring to Jesus. I shouldn't have to keep going into that over and over again. You should automatically figure it out. What Constantine did was anti-Semitic. That was his whole intention. And so Joseph Smith picked up on this Jewish prophecy. That's what he's referring to when Nephi appears to him. And if you're not going to study the Joseph Smith papers, you're not going to learn that what we've been given has been tampered with and that it needs to be corrected. And the Joseph Smith papers show the corrections that need to be made. I don't know what to do with you guys. So Nephi comes to Joseph Smith, talks about Egyptian gold plates, and refers to the prophecies of the latter-day Messiah, referring to Deuteronomy 18. And it's of special importance because Joseph tells us that all the prophecies that he is told by Nephi are from the Old Testament, but then lists Acts. And so when you go to Acts, then you find out, oh, that comes from Deuteronomy 18. He's trying to lead you through teaching in a footnote referencing chain. And so it's not Jesus. Joseph Smith knows this. We just got told in the first vision, it's not Jesus. We are now being told who our Christ is, according to Joseph Smith. And I've gone over with you about the great and abominable Christ for the great and abominable church with the false prophet leading it. And in the latter days, it's supposed to fall. That's also in Deuteronomy 18. After talking about the latter-day man like Moses, then gets into the false prophet. And so Joseph Smith likewise knew of this and refers to it specifically in section 85 of the Doctrine and Covenants, verse 8. That's the false prophet of the great and abominable church. And so thus the one mighty and strong is the man like Moses that Joseph Smith refers to in section 103, verse 16. But John in Revelation says that this man like Moses is going to have a wedding feast. Gives us a star date at the end of the latter days. And it's the death sign in heaven. And this is kind of important to pay attention to because these are prophecies. 2 Nephi 25 verse 1 says that the Book of Mormon is not literal history, but is written as prophetic literature for the latter days, as 1 Nephi chapter 1 is 2017, which corresponds with all other scripture for that, and specifically the start date given by John in Revelation chapter 12, 1, 2, and 5. which Joseph Smith revision puts it in verse 3. And the Book of Mormon verifies that it's all part of the same sign by talking about God sitting on his throne. And so Jesus in the Gospels was written by Jews. Therefore, it's not Jesus that he's talking about. It's a type and shadow character whose name has meaning referencing Jeremiah chapter 23 verse 5, the man like Moses, the savior of the Jews, and the descendant of King David. And Matthew discusses Martha and Mary as two women that are prominent in Jesus' life. They are his wives. And in the book of John, is it... yep. Chapter 20. This is the only place where it mentions it. The others, it's a different version. And so, starting in verse 11, but Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping. And as she wept, she stooped down and looked into the sepulchre. So remember, he dies on a cross rather than the pole that the Romans used. The author's trying to tell us something. They know of the dates of the latter days. John knows them. Chapter 12 is the beginning, refers to it in the story form as a birth, and so others use it as a birth. That's the start of the latter days, 2017. And then Revelation 19 is the last day of the latter days. This is the wedding feast, supper, lamb, etc. at the temple. Joseph Smith in section 58 likewise refers to the Revelation passage. And so the sign of his death, as mentioned in the Book of Mormon also by Samuel, name of God, has to do with these two signs. Sign of his birth, sign of his death. The beginning of the latter days, the end of the latter days. So 1 Nephi chapter 1, 2017. 3 Nephi chapter 11, 2024. 8 April. And so the death of Jesus on a cross has to do with the signs in the heavens, specifically solar eclipses, because solar eclipses give us not only the date and where they are located in the constellations in story form, as I've gone over with Samson, who likewise had two wives, the Sun King. But the deaths of the lion, that was 21st of August 2017. So he starts off with the death of a lion, start of his ministry, 2017. Just like all the other stories do. And it was in Leo. And it was Monson's birthday. And it was the ancient Egyptian religious calendar New Year. That blew my mind away when I found that out. That means the Egyptians knew about it. If you think it's impressive that the biblical authors written during the Roman period knew about it, they got it from the Egyptians, who knew about it long before 4000 BCE. Because these documents that we have indicate predated material that we do not have, or at least have not found. And so they're preserving an older knowledge of things. And so the first and last day of darkness, of three days of darkness, only the Gospels have 3 hours. Even the Book of Mormon has 3 days. Those are solar eclipses, and they're over the United States. We already know this now. They've begun. We know the next 2 are going to be over the United States as well. But the first and the last cross. So the death on the cross of the Son. The Son King, the Son God, that's Emmanuel, the Egyptian Sun God, Amen. Joseph Smith refers to him as Son Amen. In Greek, it's referred to, in Luke, even, the Son of the Highest. The Highest is the sun at noonday. Book of Mormon uses noonday. Joseph Smith uses noonday. And so he didn't actually die on a cross, or he's not going to die on a cross, to answer somebody's question that I linked him to several other videos instead. But it has to do with the prophecy of him for the latter days. He's not supposed to die, and John tells us why. And she talks with the 2 angels in white. Where's the body of Jesus? So it's the death sign. That's why they had to include the tomb, even though it refers to Osiris's death, who was buried in a tomb. It's actually Jesus who restores the throne of his deceased father, Horus restoring Osiris's throne. And the whole temple rituals were established by Osiris being the first to die. Yes, Abel. The Bible took it directly from the battle between Osiris and Set. The Khan of Set. And she's asking these angels, where is he? And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus standing. You know, this is Yah, the Hebrew God of salvation, referring to Jeremiah. Yahweh will save the Jews, like the man like Moses. Or like Moses, the man like Moses, and knew not that it was Jesus. Jesus saith unto her, Mormons, are you knowing who to look for? Exactly. You don't. And this is what they're trying to get across here, is that Mormons will not know him, even though he is available face to face as a mortal person, because they're not looking for a mortal. Joseph Smith tells us that this would be the case in section 1, verse 16. The Mormons do their own will, believe in their own God, and they refer to Jesus as it's now fulfilled, isn't it? And so they do not know him. And the great and abominable church, which is referred to as Babylon, will fall for believing in the abominable Christ that Joseph Smith talks about in the first vision. Jesus says unto her, Mary. She turned herself. She didn't turn herself. Because she is already looking at him. See verse 14. And And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus standing. So why is she turning herself again? It's a mistranslation. And there's the clue when verse 17 says, Jesus saith unto her, touch me not. She goes to sexually embrace him. You don't do that unless you're married. She is the wife of Jesus, according to the author. But it's been badly mistranslated. Because heaven forbid Christians have Jesus married and have Sophia turn into Sophie Neveu for Dan Brown's character, Tom Hanks, to save the day and rescue Sophie Neveu. They didn't ever follow through with that for the latter days for her. But he continues, touch me not, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. And this is partly with the Egyptian story, as Isis, the wife of Osiris, recovers the body of Osiris. She conceives so that the heir to the throne can be born. And this is what it's referring to. But ascended. The Book of Mormon says that ascension took place on the very day of the death sign. 8 April 2024. That's important because Mormons claim the Book of Mormon is true, but they don't believe that. Nope. They believe the Book of Mormon as long as it's not Travis's explanation, which is the only true explanation. They have to believe in magic and supernatural powers and a being who was created by Constantine, because the prophets are leading them astray. It's sad that Mormons are so easily fooled, but we are indoctrinated from birth. Me too. Me too. And so, ascended to my Father. That's the coronation. In the Egyptian religion and the ancient religions, you did not succeed to the throne without being also married to a woman. You had to have a queen in order to ascend to the throne. And the Egyptians had their story of Nut and Geb with the creation story to maintain the bloodline with your sister, and thus why in religion it's brother and sister. And and then she goes and tells the 12. But this is all about prophecy for the latter days, for 8 April 2024. The death sign over America for the date 8 April 2024. Died on the cross, ascended to take over the throne after the fall of the great and abominable church. And the Book of Mormon gives us stages of what's going to happen. All of it has happened up to this point. So why would it not continue to do so until the end? We are told to endure to the end. But as much as everybody in religion focuses on Jesus, there's got to be a woman involved. As I've gone over with you, if you hadn't caught on, there has to be a woman. But I'm concerned because Mormons missed the Exodus in 2020. That was when the Exodus was supposed to occur. Joseph Smith warns Mormons in multiple locations, and especially in the Nephi visiting him, referring to the prophecy of the man like Moses from Deuteronomy, that if Mormons don't listen, they will be utterly destroyed. And Mormons didn't listen, and Mormons have been destroyed for following Nelson rather than hearkening to the mortal Mormon Christ whom they were supposed to seek, studying their scriptures to learn about, to know the signs when they occur, to know of his coming to Utah to start his ministry. Matthew chapter 2 verse 1. Now the birth of Jesus was on this wise. He was born in Bethlehem, the star Spica in Virgo, 23rd September 2017, in Judea, phonetically the same as Utah. He's already among you, and you know him not. He came as a thief in the night, and you do not know him, because you do not have oil in your lamps. You are among the foolish virgins, and the wedding feast is upon us. And you don't have the oil, and you don't even have the reserve oil, because you're in the wrong temple. But the temple's not even being built because nobody went in the Exodus. And so we're under some humiliating historical events to be recorded. But just as Mormons rebelled, to quote Elder Bednar's plagiarized talk, likewise, the Mormon woman, who is to be the wife, likewise can rebel. And obviously she has already, hasn't she? Because if she didn't go with the Exodus, where is she? She too has rebelled, and is about to become a pillar of salt. Remember the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Lot's wife turns back, becomes a pillar of salt. That's all symbolic, because it's a parable or a story, prophecy of the latter days. The destruction of the Great Salt Lake, Utah, where the Great and Abominable Church is headquartered, with the Great and Abominable Jesus Christ and the false prophet. Because not only are you supposed to be looking for the Christ, the mortal Mormon Christ, not only are you supposed to be looking for the mortal Mormon wife of the Christ, but you're also supposed to be looking for the false prophet of the Great and Abominable Church. But that one's the easiest one. Because all Mormons are born into it. Mormons just have to be born, and they're in the Great and Abominable Church to know that they are in that fulfillment of prophecy. But the identity of the Church of the Lamb Christ and his bride, that's the tricky one that Mormons are rebelling against. And so after the destruction, I guess we're going to have to go to the highways. Right, Elder Bednar? Or did you not retain any of the information from what you plagiarized? As we journey back to an empty and desolate Zion with no temple that will have to be built from scratch. So yeah, this is historic, what we are going through in these latter days. The events that have occurred on earth, as well as in the United States, as well as in the church, are historic. They should be for the records, in the historical records. But the Mormons have disgraced themselves in their rebellion, in their refusing to study. And I can empathize partly, because I too was born and raised Mormon and was deceived and spread lies to everybody on my mission. And throughout my life until I finally found the truth. But for me, it was a matter of, I went to find out if Joseph Smith was true as a translator. And I didn't even think that this church was wrong, that I needed to study church history. But all of the critics who've left the church, that was your specialty. What happened to you guys? How did you blow it? How did you get the information wrong? You see, no wonder Mormons don't believe you. You guys got offended, but Mormons who stay are like, he's the prophet of God. What are you doing? You're focusing on Joseph, not Brigham Young. You've been conned by the con man. So, alrighty. That's basically it.